Hello and welcome to podcast number 33 of the Gordon and Cherise show. And I love that we're at 33. I don't know why, it just sounds good to me. We continue to cover some really deep and important topics. I feel like it's like we're on a treasure hunt together in this community. And we want to provide valuable things, life-giving things, hope for you in your journey as you are navigating through your own suffering, your own pain, whether it be a physical chronic pain issue or you're the spouse or the friend of somebody who's suffering. We want to help equip you.
Yes, we do. And good morning to you, Cherise.
Well, good morning.
Okay. How many shots of espresso did you have this morning in your coffee?
It must be a lot because I'm just like, let's go.
I realize I need to be sharp today. You look like you're ready to take over this podcast.
Better. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Okay. So the podcast is entitled?
If Things Were Different.
If Things Were Different. Mm-hmm. Okay. I think a lot of people who are in pain or who have slipped into painful adversity or who have made wrong choices with their life and may have regrets, they probably fantasize about, if things were different, what would I really do? Those
thoughts probably are so consuming that, as we talked about in the last podcast about having, present thinking, being in the moment, it erodes that because there's this fantasy thinking that comes in, pleading and begging and wanting to be there to distract from the real transformation that's ahead. Don't you think?
Right. How about from the spouse's point of view for today? Can we do this? I'm putting you on the spot.
Oh, great.
Okay. What would you do if I were healed? In other words, how would you live?
Well, some of those things I can't talk about on this podcast.
Okay. How would you live your life out differently if I were actually fully cured from all of my ailments? How would you really live your life differently?
Oh my gosh. The funny thing is, Gordon, I don't think that the core of our marriage would change that much. The substance that we have developed through this path of suffering, I think that the interior part would be very similar. Our communication would be very similar. But I just think of the idea of like the fact that we live right now in Colorado in the mountains and we can't even go climb a 14er together or do a hike together. So the companionship of activity that I crave with you, just if you were healed and we could be out on a paddleboard together, or if we were in the mountains together, or those kind of things, I crave having the activities with you that we can't share when your disability doesn't allow you to do those things.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
There's a loneliness that comes even as close. And boy, we are like glue. I mean, it's ridiculous how close we are.
Yes.
But there's still a loneliness that pain can put in the middle of a relationship.
Yes, it does.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it does. I think for me, if I were to answer that question, what would I do if I were healed? I forgot what it's like to even live pain-free.
You've said that many times to me.
It's been so many years.
Right.
Point number 2, for anyone else, I don't wish a chronic pain lifestyle on anyone else, even my worst enemy.
Mm-hmm.
It's very difficult. And the people out there are going through difficult times when they're trying to process and travel through life and they're dealing with chronic pain. I get it. I totally get it. But I can say this, walking through the process of chronic pain has also brought in abundance in our life that we would have never had before.
Right.
So that abundance is this. We always, you take the line, if I live an abundant life, it's always going uphill.
Well, it's changed our definition of abundance.
It sure has, because the abundance is how far down in the pain pit have we been? And then what is abundance? How do we measure that? So the depth and richness of our spiritual walk It has matured because pain has been a facilitator. That's why it's been considered a gift.
Right.
But if I were actually pain-free today,
Oh, man.
how would it be different? I'm afraid I would initially just give into indulgence.
Yeah, I could see that.
Indulgence with activity.
Maybe you become like at the gym. Well, if gyms were actually open here, or you would just be like powerlifting or doing the extreme, because you tend to go that way anyway with extreme discipline.
I would want to be challenged, and I'd want to challenge a physically healthy body. There's no doubt.
I could see that.
And I'd want to make up for lost time.
Yeah.
How could I be more productive? How could I look at something occupationally? What challenges did I not take on? But all those words of indulgence and taking on challenges and being successful again at something else because I'm healthy, all of those things do one thing. They edify self.
You're right.
It's bringing up
You're right.
It's bringing up the self portion of our humanity. And there's nothing wrong with loving who you are and why you're created. But for me, the shift and the process of going through pain and not be totally healed or rid of physical pain has allowed me to have a shift of my love and adoration for God. So that wholeness of who I am is actually greater than if I had no pain.
The truth is, Gordon, I married a man that I knew had pain from the beginning. And I know that it got so much worse within 6 months of our marriage.
Yes, it did.
I mean, I know that you wouldn't have wanted to yoke a very young bride at the time to that pain if you knew how bad it was really going to get.
Right.
But it's like God knew that you needed somebody for this journey. And honestly, Gordon, the man that's been forged out of the fire of pain is the man I'm in love with. I mean, I wouldn't say I would trade our life for climbing the mountains. I mean, I would love the benefit. I would love the added bonus, but I wouldn't trade this suffering component that has made you so sharp in other ways. It's endeared me to you because we can take everything else away. Even if you don't get off the couch or the bed, there have been times in our marriage where you couldn't do anything. But guess what? We still could communicate. And that's been an incredible gift for both of us.
And we've seen the practical manifestation come out in other areas of our life. Your business, our business.
Yep.
The relationships, the influence, the richness and value in friendships, the love that's central to the core of our family. It's pretty special.
And I think that touches on something that you're already saying, but I think we can define it even more, that your life is more than pain.
Yes, it is.
I think it brings up that epiphany in the situation. Your life is more than pain.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I like what Joni Eareckson Tada referenced in one of her podcasts. She was talking about burden versus charity.
About her being a burden versus charity, or
Right.
people who are disabled,
Or people
feeling like a burden versus, yeah.
Right. And one of the points that I appreciated was this, is that sometimes we are a burden in our relationships. But we don't focus on the burden. Let's focus on the heroism in our charity.
Right.
Okay?
That's huge.
And you have gained those gifts that you would not have gained if I were pain-free. Okay? Of identifying with heroism, identifying with the importance of caregiving, identifying with the importance of taking care of elderly folks, okay, on different levels. You've identified with those aspects because of long suffering, which is one of the fruit of the Spirit.
Well, I mean,
The Spirit,
thank
excuse
you,
me.
Gordon.
Yes.
But it wouldn't have happened without the us component to that.
Right.
But I would also say that it has taught me that heroes are made in secret.
Yes, they are.
They are formed in the things that the world cannot see. And they're formed by good deeds that nobody is honestly supposed to see but God.
Right.
The true hero is forged in that hidden place with God.
Right.
When we are the spouse of one suffering, we're in our own pain pit. We're in our own pain pit. It's just there. But it's there that this magical moment with God creates this vision of beauty through that and equips us. It's like that pain pit for us emotionally is a place where we take off our old garments and put on like this armor that God gives us. We learn how to become warriors in the darkness.
Yes, we do.
For the people we love.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. And so if things were different, I don't think we would have seen with spiritual eyes and experienced physically in this reality the power of God like we do now.
That's right.
We would not have.
I agree with that, Gordon.
Okay. I don't think we would have gained respect for human life and compassion towards those who are also dealing with difficult times.
Right.
Okay. That's why our platform is formed, because it's formed because we also know how to share in the truth. We know how to look at the inner things. We're processing and sharing in humility the truth and honesty about living an abundant life.
Yeah.
I
mean,
so pain does this. It helps us to highlight what true religion is. It's taking care of the widows. Mm-hmm. It's taking care of those who are afflicted.
The widows and orphans.
Widows and orphans. It's feeding those who are hungry. Mm-hmm. It's having compassion for the prisoners. Now listen, we can also be a prisoner in our own self-imposed jail of brokenness and trauma.
True.
We can be set free. I don't think we would have learned those lessons if everything was just honky-dory, we're pain-free, and we get to do whatever we want, and this is the best of life, and we can compare, we can succeed, and we can just make things happen only on our own inner power.
Yes.
Okay?
You're right about that, Gordon.
Okay? That's the imitation. The depth and truth, pain has been, again, a gift.
It's a gift.
It's a gift in the process.
I agree with that. And go ahead.
Yeah, and this is not forever. I think one thing that has struck me in my times of contemplation, and I've thought about what if things were different and for me in my life? What if circumstances allowed me more freedom? Well, I've discovered I've been trapped in that small space, and it's been slowly of taking one step out, and that circle in my life of influence has grown. A lot of it's come because of the Word of God.
Oh, I think all of it.
Okay.
It started there.
It started there. Mm-hmm. And there's been a physical walk of faith, even though I walk with a limp.
Absolutely. Yes.
But,
and you're more trusted because you do walk with a limp.
And I can walk with a limp across the United States. 3 and 4 different times I've crossed the United States through faithfulness.
On a treadmill, that's what you're talking
about. Right. Mm-hmm. Would I have done that if I had no pain initially? Probably not. No, not at all. The thing that has struck me, again, in those times of contemplation have been this. The pain that I'm experiencing and the pain that you experience as a spouse, and the loads and the burdens and the stress and the hardships, here's the good news. Those really belong to God when we cast our anxieties unto Him.
True.
And it's not ours to always keep, even though we're accountable for choices and decisions and taking responsibility for our life. There's a day that we don't have to keep those things that are jam-packed full of painful sorrow.
I agree, because one day I think it will be exchanged for a true treasure in the kingdom of God.
Yes, it will.
It's there's going to be a great exchange,
right,
for the pain we endure.
So what we have to do now, which I think is the hardest thing to do when you're struggling with holding on to pain, okay? Because you get to a point where pain, the tentacles, the stinging aspects of pain hit you so many times that you almost become conditioned to dealing with it. You even get comfortable though you're experiencing pain.
Right.
Instead of sharp and stabbing, it could be dull and achy. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then you might be dealing with fatigue or something else. Okay. The question is, and the challenging question is, why don't you leave your pain behind now and even dive deeper into your thoughts towards God? Okay? So if you're trying to imagine a life without pain, you're really basically starting to become awakened to the fact that there is a reality about a new life. There's a reality about something different that might come up on the horizon. So why don't you leave your old thoughts now and fill your mind with the truth of God? Why don't you do it now?
That's good.
And get started. So we're at the end again. I hate coming to the end of this podcast.
Well, they're coming quickly because we're shortening these to they're more effective this way, honey. So.
Well, they're 17 minutes, but now we're jumping them up to 20 minutes, okay?
Hurry up here.
What is your thought for the day?
Well, for me, personally, if I continually think about if things were different, it would sabotage the absolute joy that we experience in this moment.
Yes.
And so I have had this, I've let the horses out of the gate, and I've gone through seasons where if things were different, if those thoughts just bombard me, and I can say that is the least happy that I've been in my marriage. It is the least effective that I've been as a leader. It is the worst thinking. I think there's a difference between us trying to create that different life and us having a glimpse of maybe a sanctified life that God is leading us to, as you mentioned, towards the end here.
Right.
Like a new life. Yeah, I believe we will continually have a new life, but we don't have to search for if things were different and fall into fantasy.
Yes.
So think about the joy of this moment.
What a joy for the words that you just expressed.
Thank you.
Absolutely. My thought is this, and you mentioned if you held on to these thoughts, if my life were only differently, and you created this alternate false reality, an imaginary world for yourself. What if it were differently right now? Which is full of regrets. Okay. It just takes you to a pit of self-pity and disappointment.
Yeah.
Okay. It doesn't lead to new life. My thought is this: put your mind on something that's healthy and real. What seems incurable to us one day will eventually vanish. Okay. Our pain actually belongs to God.
That's so good.
Pain is not for us to keep. And there's an eternal doorway waiting for us, for those who believe.
Amen.
Okay? And so what we get to exchange? We get to exchange pain for a lifestyle of illuminating love.
That will never end.
That will never end.
Absolutely. That's the hope.
Okay? That's the thing that's going to be different. That's how things
Amen
work out
that.
differently for you.
That's good.
Okay.
Boy, this is too good to want to leave, but we have to, so that we can catch you on the next show. And until then, please tune in to our website at gordonandcherise.com, and it will be full of our podcast and more treasure troves that you can identify with through this time in between our podcasts. So thank you again, and we look forward to catching you next time.
Yes, thank you. See you later.
See you soon.